This podcast mentions suicide, mental illness, grief, and loss, and may be triggering for some listeners. So please take care of your well-being by pausing or skipping any sections that feel uncomfortable to you. And if you or someone you know is struggling, please call 988 for support. Hi.
Hi, welcome back.
Welcome back. Feels like we never left.
No, I'm like glued to my seat now.
I know, right? Can you believe, I can't, but can you believe that we are already at the end of season 2 of The Survivors?
No, it kind of freaks me out a little bit.
I mean, this is now the 30th episode that we have recorded since we started in March. And that first of all, to me, I think it feels like a lot longer. How's it feel to you?
It feels way, way longer. I feel like we've been doing this for a year.
Easily. I would even feel like more than that. And I think that speaks to how quickly you and I connected and how quickly you and I became friends. And because of everything that we talk about, like we share literally everything that we go through that is not sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, it's incredibly insane, but in such a good way.
Yeah. I mean, this whole second season has been full of just so many raw stories, all this lived experience, so much honesty, vulnerability on both sides. And I think a lot of pretty powerful lessons about grief and healing and what that takes and what it means to be an advocate and things like connection and the power that's found in connection. And so today we get to do the fun thing, which I had a blast doing this last season. We get to take like 2 minutes each to look back at all the episodes 1 through 14 that we recorded this season and celebrate how far we've come, which I love doing. I love any kind of reflection exercise, and share a little bit about what's coming next for us in season 3. So can I start?
Yes,
Okay.
you can start.
So episode 1, back in June, you remember how excited I was because we were doing our Pride episode and we were talking about what it feels like to be a part of, not just an ally of, but you and I are both members of the LGBTQ community. We talked a lot about how different mental health can feel when you're part of a marginalized community. And the queer community is most definitely a marginalized community, a heck of a lot more lately than it has been. And we just dug deep into options to get mental health care and support groups and ways to be an advocate. And I talked a lot about my volunteer work with the Trevor Project. And we really, I feel, in the spirit of Pride, offered people a lot of resources for the queer community.
Oh, we did. Even resources that, and I'm part of the queer community and didn't realize. And I think there was what we provided our listeners with was really valuable information. The rules of the game are changing every day. And by us giving really good, up to date resources was super beneficial. And we're all kind of struggling right now. The world is on fire. And my hope is that people that listen to that episode really got something out of it.
Yeah, I think they did. I mean, I know the feedback that we got was overwhelmingly so positive about the conversation that we had. And I think that what stuck out the most to me is that we talked about how Pride Month is way more than just about
Rainbow and
rainbow.
sunshine.
Exactly, rainbow flags. Yeah, that it's about visibility and it's about validation and it's about creating and offering life-saving support. So I do have to say that that was one of my favorite episodes from last season.
Mine too.
Yeah, yeah. So then talked in episode 2 about one of the things that I really do love to talk about, and I was so glad we dedicated a whole episode to it, was why we need to stop saying committed suicide when we talk about how someone took their life. And I found that to be equally as powerful because so many people just don't understand that stigma, whatever a stigma might relate to, generally comes from how we talk about that thing. And when we attach words like committed to an act like suicide, right away, it automatically gives suicide a negative connotation and makes it seem somehow illegal or immoral or inappropriate in some way. And we had the most beautiful conversation about how important it is to change the language before we can ever even hope to make a dent in the stigma, because that's where it all comes from.
Yeah, and since that conversation, and even when you and I started talking, I've now started correcting people when they say committed suicide. I'm like, no, you need to say they took their life by suicide. Don't say committed, because then I think about, like, if I had really gone through the act, like, would I have wanted people to say that I committed suicide? No, I attempted taking my life.
Right. It it unfairly stigmatizes someone. It it unfairly puts someone in a bucket of shame, and it's just because they had a mental illness and they couldn't go on. So they shouldn't be they shouldn't be in any way thought of less than for making that decision when they felt like they didn't have any options. So we gave people, I think, a lot of really valuable ways to say it another way, like died by suicide or ended their life or took their life. And I really think that that was a super powerful conversation that I think hopefully changed a lot of people's hearts and minds.
Yeah, it was a really powerful conversation for me, and super thankful that we got to have it.
I know, me too. Me too. And then we segued in episode 3 into talking about something that you and I have been doing a lot of talking about lately, which is suicide in the workplace. And we've been doing that with our shared partner at Calmary, the online mental health platform, who's doing a lot of work trying to help companies create better, healthier environments in the workplace. And that, I know that's your sweet spot. You've been in the workplace for a long time.
It is my sweet spot because I worked for corporate America for 45 years. Out of all those years, only one company ever did it right. And having those conversations at work around a colleague that took their life by suicide is a very delicate conversation. And it was one of I really enjoyed that conversation that you and I had because it highlighted a lot of things that companies can do better when it comes to having those conversations, and also identifying if somebody's at risk. In today's world, people are suffering, and a lot of people are suffering in silence. So having more mental wellness tools within a company makes it easier for people to identify kind of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And we just, it was a big reminder to everybody that we don't put our mental health and wellness in a box every day when we go to work. It comes with us. And if things are not good there, in a place where most of us spend a great majority of our time, well, then it's not going to be good anywhere. So I was really, really glad that we had that conversation because I think we gave people a lot of, especially companies and managers and C suites and HR directors, we gave them a lot to think about.
We did.
Yeah.
And it was just, like I said, such a great conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And then our 4th episode of the season, this was a hard one because for me, it was right in the middle of it was approaching my trigger days. We talked about trigger days and anniversaries and birthdays after we've lost someone. And I remember that episode was only a couple of weeks before the anniversary of when my dad took his life, and that's always a really hard time for me. And I felt so empowered having that conversation because we really had the chance to really kind of pick it apart and dig into why that is so hard to deal with, and things that we can do to make it easier and less triggering, and how to prepare for them and kind of honor them all at the same time. And I know it helped me in that moment because it was right on the edge of me having to do that. So I loved that we got to have that conversation.
It helped me too. It helped remind me what I do differently on Christmas Day,
Mm,
what I
yeah.
do in the days and weeks prior to that. Taking a look at my own healing journey and figuring out, like, I turned all that horrible pain into purpose, and doing that with you. I do things a lot differently now. Like, I put up stuff, I put up decorations, I do things that make my heart feel good and remind me of where I was and where I am now.
Yeah, and that's powerful stuff. And it's really powerful stuff, and it came from that beautiful episode. And then from there, episode 5, we jumped into, and this was a heavy topic, the impact of suicide on family and friends, which is a really, really big topic because suicide creates this enormous ripple effect that permeates families and communities. And we spent a lot of time talking about how does that impact everybody who's connected to a suicide loss and the person who died, and how do we support the people who are left behind. And in my case, I've lost 3 people that way, and I know you've lost a bunch of people that way, and we're all still here grieving the people who we've lost, and that is a hard position to be in, whether you're a friend or a family member or coworker. It's a tough position to be in. So
And a lot of times, suicide can rip a family apart. Eh, and trying to navigate all of that, it can rip apart friend groups. It can. It was such a powerful episode because I remembered I've had friends, I've had family members, I've even had coworkers that took their life, and it really there's like a clean line of delineation there, and a lot of times people don't wanna cross it, and it just made it that conversation was really important to me.
glad. It's one thing to create conversations and have conversations that hopefully inspire other people, but what a lot of people I don't think realize when they listen to us, or if they're watching us on YouTube, these conversations are just as much for the 2 of us as they are for any of you listening. They are cathartic, they're healing. G and I have created such an incredible bond that I don't share with anybody else because of what we talk about. So there's power for you and there's power for us too. So just worth mentioning that because it was on my mind.
It was a super powerful conversation, and I'm glad we got to have it.
I know, me too. Me too. So episode 6, this was an interesting one that you don't hear an awful lot about in mainstream mental health media. And I actually have an awful lot of experience with this topic, and it was reverse grieving because I'm one of the people who has grieved for someone they've lost twice. So if you're just turning in now and you're only hearing us for the first time during our season 2 recap and you don't know my story, I lost my father to what I was told was a heart attack when I was 10 years old, and 35 years later, I learned the truth that he had actually taken his life. So I have grieved my father twice now in my life, like fully, not that you're ever done, but I have grieved him twice. And the second time that I grieved my father, most of that grief was happening in reverse because finding out he died a different way meant that I then had to kind of reprocess everything that had happened growing up. Was that real? Did he really Did he really mean it when he said he loved me? Was he really happy? Was he not happy? Like all of these things that grieving backwards does to the brain, and what happens when you learn something new about somebody you lost. It's a big shift.
Yeah, I learned a lot from you on that episode because that's not something that I have had to do. I've never grieved in reverse, and I can only think of how painful that was to find out the truth as you were older, and such a good, powerful episode. And people, you were able to touch people that I wouldn't be able to touch because I haven't had that type of scenario happen in my life.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot, and I really loved you for holding the space for me that day. It was just as powerful for me, and that's the beauty of you and I doing what we do the way we do it. We are the survivors, and we come at surviving suicide from 2 very different sides, and we have all this lived experience, and chances are if one of us doesn't have it, the other one does. So it's a beautiful thing in a not quite beautiful space, if that makes sense.
It does perfect
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. So from there, we jumped to episode 7, and we talked a lot about when the grief that we feel feels more like guilt than like grief. And that is a tough one. It was an honest look at the guilt that so often, most often, follows suicide loss. That was a hard conversation because I know I've had my own issues with kind of unusual types of survivor guilt. And it's a lot to untangle when you talk about those what ifs and should haves and why didn't I do the thing or say the thing.
And it's not just the guilt that survivors feel, it's the guilt that suicide attempt survivors feel also. Like that shoulda, woulda, coulda, didn't. And, we were able to give two really great perspectives from a loss survivor and from an attempt survivor. Guilt is real.
That's right. That's right. And it's challenging to navigate whichever side you're on.
It is. And it was a powerful reminder to me of if this was to ever happen to me again, and I mean if, because you never know, life throws horrible curveballs, but I would be a lot more open about what I was going through so I wouldn't hold on to all that guilt.
Yeah, that's an important takeaway. And it's also, I think, probably got to be a little reassuring for you now that you have tools that you didn't have before.
Yeah, love my tools.
I
They're
know.
like I want to carry that little tool chest with me like a lunch pail every day.
You should get like you should go to Home Depot and get one of the work belts. Do that. Anyway, moving on.
Wow.
Moving on to episode 8. That was a smooth segue, right? To episode 8, National Wellness Month. That
Yeah.
was in the middle of August, and that was National Wellness Month. And we talked a lot about mental health. We talked about physical health. We talked about emotional wellness and how they're all so deeply connected. And we, explored a lot of meaningful habits, big habits, small habits that help to keep us grounded, especially when we're grieving.
Yeah. I mean, we you got to keep those habits. Like healthy habits are so important. Take care of you.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that the truth? So from there, we rolled into the end of August and we talked a lot about the role of therapy and support groups in grieving suicide loss, which is something both of us have had a lot of experience with in terms of being parts of support groups. And I'm a facilitator of a support group, and we both are such incredible advocates for therapy because we both absolutely love and adore our therapists. And we talked a lot. I remember we talked a lot in that episode about how grieving suicide is different. It hits different, it feels different, and it's because of the nuances that exist in suicide loss, like the guilt and the shame and the why and the what ifs. And we talked about how having the right any support really, but the right kind of support in particular can really make all the difference.
It can. And for me, therapy was a game changer, both professionally and personally. And it helped me to recognize things in myself that I didn't really realize. I also attended a couple of support groups, and nothing better than being around people that are dealing with something so similar to what you're dealing with. And I didn't have to talk. I did talk because we all know I can't be quiet anymore. But y- it was it made my heart feel good.
Struggling with your mental health, feeling lost, overwhelmed, or just alone? Well, you're not. Welcome to the HelpHUB, your online destination for mental health resources, content, and tools to help you navigate whatever mental health challenges you're facing in the moment. At the HelpHUB, we offer individualized resources tailored to your unique needs and community, with over 16 different categories to find exactly the kind of personalized help you need when you need it most. Because even though we all deal with many of the same challenges, we don't always experience those challenges the same way. So whether you're looking for crisis support, downloadable resources, or an extensive archive of mental health-related articles and videos, we've got you. From episodes of the Survivors podcast for suicide loss survivors and lived experience blogs to interactive tools and professional connections, the HelpHUB meets you where you are and helps you move forward with strength and support. Remember, you don't have to do this alone. Visit thehelphub.co today. Well, I know as someone who talks to people all the time who are survivors of suicide loss, I have this instant connection with someone, whether we do a lot of deep talking or not, whether I'm just sitting there listening to them or they're listening to me, and it's a back and forth. There is something so different. It's a next level feeling when you know the person you're either in a support group with, or maybe you've got a trauma-informed therapist who perhaps they've experienced suicide loss. Like, I know with the group that I moderate for Samaritans, the Safe Place support group for suicide loss survivors, one of the criteria to be a facilitator for that group is obviously we get trained, but we have to be survivors. So every time I'm there in that group, I may not be doing a lot of the talking. I'm just facilitating, but I'm getting a lot out of it because I'm in a virtual room with a whole bunch of people who understand that kind of loss. So it's really powerful.
It was very powerful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. And then we ended August talking about creating rituals and how to do that and how important that is when you're grieving. And I know that both of us have a lot of our own unique rituals. Some things you and I do that are similar, and some things are definitely very unique to each one of us. But whatever they are, they show us, help us stay connected to the people that we've lost, whether it's as simple as lighting a candle or it's writing a letter. Like I've been writing letters to my dad more recently, or it's visiting that meaningful place that you did the things that you loved together, whatever it is. We're talking about how to create those healing touch points through rituals. And I loved that conversation. I really did.
I do too. And one of the things that like I do for myself every year at Christmas is I write a letter to myself that from 2 years ago to see what my growth has been and what I've been doing. And I have found it to be very cathartic for me.
Yeah, see? And that's something that someone might not even consider unless they've heard our episode. And hopefully we've we've given people different things to think about that maybe they didn't think about before. And I know that was something that I hadn't thought about before. So it was something I appreciated that you offered to the conversation.
I thank you.
Look at you offering such valuable insight. So then we hit September. And that, of course, as most people know in this mental health space, is National Suicide Prevention Month. I guess you could say it's our month because this is the majority of the work that we do. that's focused on mental illness and suicide and depression and this particular kind of grief and loss, and we hit it from all sides. It was a really diverse conversation. We talked about prevention, we talked about awareness, we talked about how to create a culture of connection and compassion, and why it's so important to keep the conversation going long after the month of September into all the other months. Like, it's our obligation, it's our responsibility, and I loved what we brought to Suicide Prevention Month with that conversation.
I loved it too, and it was a powerful episode for me because I remembered the healing journey I've been on now for 2 years, going on 3. And I hope that, suicide attempt survivors out there can find that one thing, that one ritual that helps you remember how far you've come, because it is such a powerful reminder that you're still living, you're still breathing, you're still loving, and you went through some really hard stuff, but you didn't stop. So,
Yeah, well, rituals are anchors. They keep us tethered. So from there, we segued right from that episode directly into World Suicide Prevention Day, and we were very lucky because our episode happened to drop on World Suicide Prevention Day. So we talked about what you just said, which is that suicide is not a regional issue, it's not a national issue, it is a global issue that impacts, in some way or another, over 94 million people a year, whether you were the one who took your life, whether you were the one who touched by the suicide, whatever it might be, that whatever way you might be involved, it is a global issue. And we looked at what we can do both within our own communities and beyond in the greater, bigger world to change some of these outcomes.
yes. And by having this conversation here, like you said, ripple effect. The more we talk about it, the less stigma there is, less shame, the less weakness, because there's no weakness or shame in talking about it. And when we don't talk about it, it just increases the stigma. So,
Yep, yep. Yeah, I think we talked about it in all the right ways. And then we talked about something that both of us were really excited to talk about, which is the role of social media in suicide prevention. We talked about this from so many different angles. We unpacked it in so many ways, like the way that it can be used for good or for evil. It's good or bad, and how it can be harmful, how it can be helpful, how to be able to filter what we see and hear so that it doesn't have an adverse effect on our mental health and wellness. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back, listen to episode 13 from September 17th, and really dig into that conversation, especially if you're a parent, talking about how you really need to filter what not only you yourself watch but and listen to, but what your kids consume too.
also making sure that you're not getting compassion fatigue. Um, you know, take walking away from social media when you need to. There is a lot of good content out there, but there's also a lot of horrible content out there. So being being mindful of what you're looking at online, being mindful of, yes, it's okay to snooze people, it's okay to block people. It's not a contest. It's all about your mental health and making sure you're keeping it in check.
Absolutely. And from there, we went right straight into episode 14, and that was all about caregiver burnout and what to do when you're the one supporting someone who is either mentally unwell or physically unwell, and how being that caregiver can be so depleting, so exhausting. We talked about how to take care of yourself, why it's important to prioritize yourself, how to ask for help, why it's important to ask for help. And it, I think, became one of my favorite conversations of the season because we really dug deep into why we need to be putting the oxygen mask on ourselves before we try to help other people.
For sure. I mean, in that episode, I talked a lot about the compassion fatigue I had for my wife, but I'm sure she had some compassion fatigue too, with just helping me deal with all my mental health issues and my depression, and reminding each other that we need to take care of our own mental health first.
Exactly.
So it's
Good.
so important.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more. So, and then here we are. And episode 15 is the one you're listening to right now. And that is a recap of season 2 of The Survivors. So I know this is a bit longer, a few minutes longer than our typical episode. So thanks for hanging in if you've hung in this long. And here are a few little things that we want to leave you with before we go. First, revisit a past episode. If you haven't been listening to us all along, give us a shot. Just pick an episode that appeals to you, maybe something you've gone through, has a connection point, and give us a listen. And then share it with somebody who you think might need it right now. Next thing is, and this is so unbelievably helpful, we don't ask for it a lot during each episode, but we're asking now, please, please leave us a review, share your feedback, connect with us online. We'd love to hear your voice. But those reviews in particular are so incredibly valuable because they elevate our podcast and our message to people who really need it most. So if you haven't left us a review, please go to Apple. Please go to our website at thesurvivors.net. Find us wherever you find your podcasts and just drop us a rating. We're happy with absolutely anything you want to give us. And the last thing is stay tuned for season 3. Make sure you subscribe so that you can follow along with us. Hit that follow button on your favorite podcast app and be ready. Just be ready because we are definitely shoring up for our best season yet. We want to level up. We want to have even more raw, real conversations ahead because surviving is not something that we do alone. We don't. And it's so imperative that we do it together. So from me to you who are listening, thank you for being part of this season and season 1, if you were. Can't wait for season 3. And gee, I don't want to get emotional because it's creeping up. I can feel it. I have loved every second that I've gotten to share with you behind the mic these last 2 seasons. This truly is one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. I cherish okay, there it is. Now I'm getting emotional.
Now
I
you're getting a
cherish
little verklempt.
I am verklempt. I cherish every one of these conversations, and you and your insights and your huge heart have helped me more than you know. So I love you so much, and I appreciate you and the opportunity to do this thing that we do every week.
Girl, you're gonna make me cry. I've been really, really good this whole episode. But I get the same feelings. I just don't want people to get to where I got to. I don't. It is a terrifying place to be. But on the other side of that, the world is a beautiful place. Even with all the crazy, I'm gonna say the word shit that's going on, it's still a beautiful place. And we want you here. And I couldn't have these conversations without anybody else besides Lisa. So thank you for putting up with my crazy. It's a certain little blend of crazy, but hopefully we're out there changing the world.
I hope so. One conversation at a time. So from us to you, thanks for hanging in there. Let's keep surviving together.
Thanks for joining us on The Survivors. Remember, no matter how tough things feel, you are enough, and the world needs you just the way you are. You're not alone in this journey. There's a community here, and every step forward counts. We're so grateful you took the time to listen, and we hope you'll take one day at a time. Just know there's always more light ahead.
Thanks for being here, friends. Just remember, help is out there in so many different places. So if you or someone you know is struggling, please call 988 and a trained crisis counselor like me will be there to help. You can also find an inclusive and comprehensive directory of mental health resources, tools, and content at the HelpHUB.co. Just remember that help is always just a call or a click away. We'll catch you next week. In the meantime, keep surviving.